It is Wednesday, my dudes, which means it's time for another First Thoughts and Initial Impressions Epic 7 video. This one will be on Saria, Iseria's hot friend that people have spent the last 7 years wondering why she's not playable. As with all of my First Thoughts and Initial Impressions videos, I'll give you my 2 cents on the character. Do I think Saria is good? Where would I play her? What types of equipment sets and artifacts would I play her on? All those things you've come to expect from me in a First Thoughts and Initial Impressions video. And without any further ado, let's take a look at Saria's S2 animation.
Do not give up. Together, we can do it. Soar aloft the winds and deliver thy light of peace. For Dan Blaya.
Okay. Super creative animations, top tier as always. Elf girl, hot, huge chest, none of that matters. Completely push it aside. As soon as I saw the voice actress for Saria in the English dub of Epic 7, I actually was stunned beyond disbelief. So in case you do not know, Saria's English voiceover artist is Debbie Derryberry, who most of you will be familiar with as the voice of Jimmy Neutron. But for me, this is the English voice of my childhood. This is the voice of Ryo-Oki, the pet of my beloved Hakubi Ryoko from my favorite anime of all time, Tenchi Muyo. Moving on to Saria's stats, she is an Earth Ranger of the Taurus zodiac symbol, which means she shares his stat line with Fenris as well as Commander Pavel. Taking a closer look at her stat line, she has 1,327 attack, 582 defense, 5,138 health, 109 base speed, 23% starting critical hit chance, 150% starting critical hit damage, and no starting effectiveness or effect resistance. This translates to the highest attack amongst Rangers in Epic 7, and one of the highest attack totals in general. But it comes at the expense of just having average speed and below average stats pretty much everywhere else. And that's going to lead into how I feel about the character when we talk about her in just a little bit. As for her imprint, she has attack percentage for the top and back slots of her team, which is fantastic for what I think this character's intended purposes. And then attack percentage for the self imprint, also very, very good. Anyways, hopefully you know the drill by now. Let's break down the character's kit before we talk about the character itself, starting with Saria's skill 2 passive, Guidance of Nature. At the start of an ally's extra turn, gains 2 focus and increases combat readiness of Saria by 30%. After using a skill when focus is full, activates Wings of Liberation. Wings of Liberation consumes 5 focus to activate. It is an AoE attack that releases a Spirit Bird. It increases the hit chance by 50% when using this skill and is unaffected by elemental disadvantage, meaning that it hits fire units. Moving on from there, we have the skill 3, Blossoming Hope. You gain 3 focus upon use, as well as 3 souls, and it has a 4 to 5 turn cooldown depending on skill level. By kindling the Light of Hope, grants invincibility to all allies for 1 turn, and increases attack for all allies for 2 turns. And finally, Saria's basic attack skill, Spirit Burst. Attacks 2 enemies with a burst and has a 65 to 75% chance, depending on skill level, to dispel 1 buff. Soulburn effect for the cost of 10 souls increases the dispel chance to 100% and ignores effect resistance. Now that you know the kit, let's talk about the character. And let me just say, I'm disappointed. My first thought when I watched the showcase for Saria was, wow, we waited 7 years for this? It's just a Setsuka counter. And then while I was at my desk, as I usually do, I sat here for a bit and I tried to theorycraft how I'm supposed to play this new hero, what I'm going to say here in this section of the video. And I tried to think of fun interactions that you could play with the character, and it just keeps coming back to 3 characters and only 1 playstyle. That's not to say that Saria is bad or won't see any play. It's actually quite the opposite, I feel like. I think she's going to actually see a decent chunk of play. It's just that this is the first new character that we've gotten since the Frieren collab, and she just feels hollow compared to Frieren and Fern. Let me explain by starting with her skill 2, Guidance of Nature. This skill, when you get full focus, activates Wings of Liberation, which is this gigantic AoE attack that gets hit chance and can hit fire units with increased accuracy, meaning the character is very obviously designed to counter Setsuka. But how do you actually use this skill? That's the issue I have here. The only way to get that bonus focus to trigger the ultimate is through extra turns on your allies. So what does that mean? It means you're going to be playing Saria with Ahmed, who you've seen a ton of times on cleave teams, Conqueror Lilius, who you've seen a ton of times on aggro teams, and Lone Wolf Pera, who you've seen a ton of times on PvP teams. If you don't trigger an extra turn, you're just stuck needing to wait 3 whole turns or proc dual attacks in order to actually fire off Wings of Liberation. And that's fine because the skill 3 Blossoming Hope is an AoE invincibility and attack buff that allows you to potentially stall out the game to get to where you need to be. At least, that was my original line of thinking until I realized that this is a Tauros Ranger that we're talking about here. They have barely over 500 defense and something like, 5.8k and change health? The character is made of paper, so you can't exactly build her on counter set as a bruiser to build up skill 3 the old-fashioned way like you can with some of these other focus and fighting spirit characters. At this point, reality started to set in that this is just a cleave character. Basically, you take your cleave opener of choice that has an extra turn, and then lock Saria in as your damage dealer. She's got the highest offensive power of any ranger, and you could just stack as much damage as you want on her. You activate an extra turn skill, which all the good ones already have combat readiness ones, and that's going to give her her own combat readiness from the passive. She's going to zoop to the top of the line, you use your skill 3, it gives you an attack buff, and then you just do the big AoE damage thing. And hopefully it kills the entire enemy team, wiping them out in one shot. If an enemy tries to play a dodge character to counter your cleave like Seskar An, you've got hit chance, so that's countered. If your opponent tries to play a counter-attacking team like, Euphine or Navy Captain Landy, or maybe they play Lionheart Sarmia to counter the extra attack nature of Saria's move, well, it doesn't do anything because your whole team's invincible. So clearly, then your answer is to just play immortality characters to survive the cleave, like Bloodblade Corinne or Inheritor Amiki, right? Well, no, because the skill 1 removes debuffs at 100% rate, ignoring effect resistance if you soul burn it, which is something that every cleave team can just very easily do. Very cool design. And even if you succeed in trying to cleave your opponents with Saria, if their Spirit Eye Celine or Maid Chloe or Ruel of Light just survives, they'll just revive their team. But it's okay because they can't do anything to you because after your cleave, everyone's invincible. So even the cleave teams can now stall in 2025 at Epic 7. What a world, am I right? Oh, and by the way, in order to counter this new character, she's focus-based, so you're going to be playing Sea Phantom Politis and Solitary of the Snow once again to counter an overpowered ranger, potentially. So yeah, hopefully you can see at this point why I'm really unenthusiastic about this release. I've never been one to really enjoy cleave, and Saria is just a new cleave tool that sidesteps most of the turn 2 conventional answers. Right on time for the end of the PvP season, as per usual. And counting her is basically just going through the motions that myself and others have been doing for months at this point. New units are meant to be exciting. And this is a character that players have wanted for a very, very long time. But seeing the kit, I just can't help but feel disappointed. If you, dear viewer, really like Saria and you really like the kit, I want you to enjoy her. I want you to have fun. But for me, this character does very little to excite me. As for how I would build Saria, it's pretty similar to a character like Commander Pavel or Argent Waves Hwayong. Depending on the level of combat readiness that you have on your team, how much you could push Saria by, and whether or not you're against characters like Red Politis or Abyssal Euphine, that's going to change a lot. Basically, if you don't need speed, it's Destruction Set with 2-piece Torrent Offset on something like Attack Percentage Boots to maximize that damage. Otherwise, you just go Speed Torrent on Speed Boots if you really need the speed, if you're just not cutting fast enough with the Combat Readiness push that is in the kit, as well as the Combat Readiness you're going to be getting from your opener. I really wish there was some kind of cool counter or unity build that I could try on this character. And maybe you could figure one out watching this, but with that level of bulk that she has, I really don't see it. Anyways, let's wrap up by talking about her artifact as well as other artifacts that you can play on her, because that's at least one of the more interesting points of the character, in my opinion. Moving on to Saria's artifact, it is Awakened Leaf. After using a non-attack skill, increases combat readiness of the caster and the ally in the back row except for the caster by 12 to 24% depending on artifact level. Can only be activated once every 2 turns. So it's an artifact that gives you a huge amount of combat readiness. Perfect if you're playing that Destruction Torrent build, the one that's just all damage, very little speed. So you get obviously combat readiness from this artifact, combat readiness from Saria's passive, and combat readiness from your opener. And hopefully that is enough for you to kind of take over the game and win from there. That said, there are a lot of other Ranger artifacts, surprisingly, that are pretty good. You have obviously Guiding Light to protect the character in case you just somehow lose turn 1. There's Misha if you need extra hit chance. There's Renewed Will, which I believe should actually work on this. I know it's an extra attack, but it's still an AoE attack, so hopefully that procs Renewed Will. And also Seaside Bellona. Her artifact could also be really, really good here as well for the Drink Splash, especially when you're playing a Ranger that could very easily clear 5,000 attack. So that would be another one that I think would be interesting to try and consider. The one other artifact that I want to highlight is Bloodstone, because the character is basically all AoE attacks. Like even her S1 is like Red Mercedes where it hits 2 targets, which means that it's going to generate a lot of damage and thus restore a lot of health off of Bloodstone. So maybe, just maybe, despite the fact that I keep looking at the character on paper and thinking there's no way that'll work, maybe Counter Unity Bloodstone will work on the character. Maybe you'll be able to use her as like another stall-based character, another way to kind of draw out the game and get a lot of value that way. I don't really think it's going to be good at top level, but who knows? It's something I got to cling to, because otherwise, you know, it's just another Ahmed cleave character, and to me, that doesn't really, you know, do much for me. Elder Saria is a character I've wanted in the game for a very, very long time, but this kit, in the way that it is, does very little to inspire me. I'm not super a fan, as you can tell by the tone of my voice throughout most of this video. The character is not limited, so don't feel compelled to roll for the character. But if you do want a cleave-based character, if you are a cleaver, I do think Saria is worth a pickup. Just remember that there are multiple limited characters coming out within the next like 6 to 7 weeks. Again, Saria is not a limited unit. So unless you just really like the character's design or you really want to play those aggressive playstyles, I think you could kind of safely keep your bookmarks and skip on this one. And those are my thoughts on Saria. Let me know down in the comment section below how you feel about the character. And do you know of any other builds you think could work on the character? Because I want to be excited. I want to really enjoy this character. But as she stands, again, not really my cup of tea. Anyways, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later now.